kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome to the April show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dilla Barman in Durham, North Carolina. I'm a cook in the kitchen. Cooks in the Kitchen, we're all Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. Check out fflclasses.org and see if there's a class near you or a class that's virtual that you can sign up for. We teach you how to eat in a healthy fashion, focused on good nutrition, and we have classes, specific classes for conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure and cancer. So we go kitchen to kitchen. We've been doing these shows for almost 2 years. And we decided earlier this year, in thinking about the terrible natural disaster, the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, to dedicate a show to so many Middle Eastern dishes. And that's what today is. So in the Middle East, in Turkey, and I'm actually here at a Turkish cultural center. So in Turkey and the Middle East, a lot of dishes are served as mezes, as a platter of a bunch of small side dishes. And I'm going to be making for you the Muhammara. Muhammara is a roasted red pepper and walnut dip. It goes great with flatbread or with cut vegetables. I'm going to be serving it with some carrots. Originally from Syria, this is also known as akuka. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. It's a red bell pepper based dip that can be made spicy. And I do have some crushed red pepper we can add optionally if we want to make it spicy. Right here, I have some red pepper, and I'll add some red pepper. It's full of flavor. It's often garnished with mint or parsley. I prefer no garnish. I like the flavor as is. Sometimes having the green is actually a nice thing, but today I won't be doing that. It keeps well in the refrigerator for at least 5 to 7 days. In fact, it sometimes tastes better if you let it sit for a day or so. And if you want to freeze it, it can keep for several months. But I think you're going to like this so much, it probably won't last for several months. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the food processor. I'm going to put in some panko breadcrumbs. These actually are Italian breadcrumbs. I was out of the panko. Either one works fine. I prefer the panko. Let's put the panko breadcrumbs in. Let's put in some walnuts. Okay, all the quantities are in your recipe handout. The recipe I put together calls for 1 clove of garlic, but it was small, so I'm using 2 cloves of garlic. And then let's put some lemon juice. I'm using Meyer lemon, and I've already squeezed. You can see half is gone. So let's put the lemon juice in. Okay, I put more lemon juice than I called for in the recipe. I love Meyer lemon juice. Meyer lemon is a little bit sweeter than most lemons. And not a lot of spices. I'm going to put some ground cumin. I'm going to put some salt. Okay. And I'm going to put some black pepper. I ground it just now, freshly ground black pepper. And optionally, you can add some red pepper, and I am going to do that. Just a little bit of red pepper to make it spicy. Okay. It's an interesting flavor. We have the spiciness, but we're also going to add a little bit of the pomegranate molasses. Okay, so I'll put some pomegranate molasses. This is an ingredient which you may, our local Whole Foods market has it. I'm just putting maybe a teaspoon in. It gives you a subtle side flavor. You can find it at Middle Eastern restaurants. And if you can't find it, you can skip it, or you can put a little bit of your favorite molasses, maybe fig molasses, something of that nature. And then I have the main ingredient, but before adding that, I'm going to do a quick pulse. Okay, just a quick pulse, and you can see I've ground it all down. And now I'm going to add the bell pepper. What I've done is I've put the bell pepper literally on a gas stove. Well, literally like this. Okay? And I let it get singed. So I did that, and this one I singed quite a bit. This one I singed less. And I did this before we started, just so I can handle it. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to roast your bell peppers, and ideally get them all black, or not. And then I'm going to go over in a moment to the sink. I'm going to rinse it under water and rub the pepper to get the charred part off. And then I'll put the flesh of the pepper in my blender. So let me do that. Excuse me, I'm going to go to the sink. Make sure that your pepper is cool to the touch, which this is. And it's not critical that you get all of the blackness off. And the skin underneath feels nice and soft. Okay? So I'm doing an imperfect job, like I always do with everything, but I'm doing an imperfect job with removing the blackness from the pepper. You don't have to get it all off. Okay, I think that's good. It's fun roasting peppers. We have a farmer's market near where I live in Carborough, North Carolina, where if you buy in season a certain number of pounds of peppers, they can roast it for you. And they have this big thing. They throw it in, it's a hopper, and they roast it, which is really fun. So let me go ahead and take my peppers, and you can see what they look like now. So most of the black stuff is off, and it should cut really easily. Okay? And there'll be some liquid inside from the cooking. Okay, you can leave that behind. Okay. So it's going to go in the blender, so you don't have to slice it very well, but I'll cut it into a few pieces. Hope the year's going well for all of you guys. And if you're a new viewer, welcome to So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. If you've been watching us for a while, welcome back. We have a good show in store for you today. So I think my friend Mark Strukvenik's going next. I think he's making, is he making harissa? I'll check my notes. You can make this recipe your own. If you like it really spicy, you can add a little bit more bell pepper. I won't add jalapeno. It's a different kind of flavor profile, but you can add a little bit more crushed red pepper. If you like hints of spiciness, but you don't like spicy, you could try something like smoked paprika, which won't really add any heat, but will add kind of something reminiscent of hot red pepper. Okay. So here's the pepper. It cuts really nicely, very soft because it's been roasted. I like to say I'm a lazy cook. If you're really a lazy cook, you don't have to do the roasting. You can actually buy pre-roasted bell peppers. But I'm not that lazy. It's so easy to roast and it's fun. I love the smell of it. So I do occasionally buy roasted red peppers, only if it's, you know, a great sale that I can't pass up on. Okay. So there's my peppers, and it is a little messy with the liquid that's come out of the pepper. And that's it. I'm just going to pulse it a little bit more. I'm using a high-powered Vitamix. You can use any blender you want for this. And what I'm going to do to get the pepper down is I have a little thing like this. And that's it. The pepper's done. It's homogenized. And what I will do next is serve it. Easy peasy. There's my Muhammara, and I want to try it. I have some baby carrots. It's delicious. I like the heat in it. For me, it's just the right amount of heat. If you don't have a tolerance for heat, you can skip that entirely. I'm just going to try the dip by itself. It's very nice. If you want a thicker consistency, add a little bit more breadcrumbs. But I like that consistency. Delicious. So one of many métiers. One thing you guys can do is make everything we do in the show today, and then you'll have a whole bunch of métiers, and you'll have a wonderful feast. So let's hope that the good people, not just in Turkey and Syria, but around the world, that we always move towards better times, and let's hope the reconstruction goes well there. So next, I was checking my notes. We moved to my friend Mark Sirkvenik in the Chicago area. Mark is making his harissa. I think you're going to enjoy it. Take it away, Mark.
Say, Dilip, thanks for that red pepper dish. Looks phenomenal. Hi, everybody. Mark Sirkvenik here. Let's Eat Great Food. You can find me at let'seatgreat.com or on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food. Or you could follow me on tour at Veg Johnson Journeys. Go to www.vegjohnsonjourneys.com. I am an executive chef on several tours this year, and we've already scheduled a few tours for next year. Our big announcement is our Lake District tour to the Lake District in England, a World UNESCO Heritage Site, and hope to see some of you on some tours coming up here. So today we're going to make a harissa. So harissa is a Middle Eastern, of course, condiment basically that can be really spicy, and it all is up to you on how spicy you'd like to make this. So traditionally, harissa is used on dishes such as hummus and stews and soups and so forth. So I'm going to give you a really, really simple recipe to go ahead and do this. And there's a couple of techniques here that you could use in other recipes, perhaps, that you've seen as well. So I do want to take a minute and just pause in remembrance of all the folks that had lost their lives and family members who are still suffering in Turkey as a result of the horrific earthquake several months ago. Of course, as you know, that is why we're dedicating today's show. So anyways, with that, my heart and blessings go out to all those individuals and family members. So with that, what I'd like to do is to just dive right into this recipe. So the base of the recipe are roasted red peppers. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to roast some red peppers. And so essentially what I do is I just take my red peppers here and then roast them right on my stovetop here. And you turn the flame on nice and high like that, and you just kind of keep an eye on the pepper until it chars. And then you just keep turning it. It's probably going to take under 5 minutes to kind of char the whole thing, and it just gives a lovely smoky flavor to it. When the pepper's done, what you'll do is you'll put it in a bowl like this, and then cover it with a dish towel like that, and let it cool off. So the steam, actually, what happens is, as the steam releases from that pepper, it loosens the skin, the charred skin, and you'll be done with the pepper, and it'll look something like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and peel this really quick for you all and show you how easy this is to peel. So all you're doing is just kind of pulling it off with your fingers like this, and just comes off really nice. And it's okay if you leave a little bit of those charred bits on there, because that's going to add just a little bit of depth of flavor. And you know, I'm all about depth of flavor and adding some additional textures as well to our dishes. So I really maintain that to be a vegan cook without all that fat and oils and sugar and salt, you really have to pay attention to your flavors. And you know, it's really easy to fry things up, and because that just kind of really tricks our bodies and our little brains, and we just love all that fried fat foods, and that's why there's so many sick, fat, and unhealthy people in the United States today, because we're so addicted to all that unhealthy food. But this way of eating really kind of forces you to focus more on the flavors. And I think it's more difficult to cook actually this way in some respects. But in other respects, if you get really fresh vegetables, the food really just seasons itself. So to that point, My wife and I were just in Mexico a couple weeks ago, and the vegetables there were just absolutely incredibly fresh. And I find that, unfortunately, when I travel to other countries, Europe or Mexico, the vegetables seem to be fresher than the ones we get here in the United States, certainly in the Chicago area, unless I go to a farmer's market. And I think it's something to do, of course, with the soil and how far vegetables and fruits are trucked. But, when we were in Mexico, it really didn't take many seasonings at all. In fact, I used very, very little seasonings when I was cooking in Mexico, as the vegetables are so full of flavor. But anyways, what I have found, though, was when you roast peppers like this, it actually enhances the flavors and really brings out some of that natural sweetness, and then, of course, the smokiness. So what I've done is just kind of pulled the pepper apart with my fingers and pulled out all the bitter ribs and all the seeds and everything like that. And I'm just going to tear it up. The recipe calls for chopping it up, but you don't really need to do that. You can just tear it up because you're going to put it all in a blender anyway. So I'm going to walk back here and throw some other peppers in the blender. Already in my blender, I have a pepper. So there's this recipe calls for 2 peppers. You can double it or half it if you like. And then also I've got in this already. I've got 5 whole cloves of garlic, and I've also got a little pinch of salt. You can omit the salt if you're salt free, if you're SOS, and also a couple teaspoons of lemon juice. So my lemon juice I freeze in ice cube trays. I get fresh lemons and freeze them in ice cube trays, and then I just pop in the whole cube, just like an ice cube. It's a lemon cube, and I just throw that right in there, and away you go. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a pan, and you're going to dry roast cumin and coriander, and then I've got some guajillo chilies in this as well. And you just want to roast these a little bit in a dry pan until they become fragrant. And you're gonna want to keep this all moving around and everything so things don't burn. So again, the number of guajillo chilies you add, or any types of chilies that you add, really depends on how spicy you like things. Again, this is a condiment. It's not meant to be a standalone dish, although you could potentially eat it, I guess, as a standalone dish. But you'll see it's going to come out as a condiment. So again, we like to put this on hummus or hummus, however you like to pronounce it, and put this on stews and soups. You could serve this with crackers as well as on a charcuterie board. I love charcuterie boards. We're always providing those to our guests while we're on tour. A nice little hodgepodge of snacks for our afternoon snack. Now, you can buy harissa in a jar like this, and I mean, that's okay, and it tastes okay. This is a product of Lebanon. It's imported locally here in Chicago. It tastes okay, but when I look at the ingredients, the number one ingredients is water, and then tomato paste, red pepper, spices, vinegar, lemon powder, salt, garlic powder, sugar, cayenne pepper, and then it does say it's packed in a facility that also contains wheat, peanuts, and sesame. So if you're allergic to any of those items, that could be a concern. And again, this is packaged, which is okay, but really, if you want to impress your friends and really have a superior product, make your own harissa, and it really just kind of elevates any kind of dish. So this is starting to get nice fragrance. It's between the coriander and the cumin and the guajillos. It's just it smells just absolutely wonderful. I'm just going to keep stirring this a little bit. The original recipe called for adding oil to it. It's really fascinating because 99% of the recipes that I find that are vegetarian or vegan have oil in them. So I pull that out, and you could easily replace that with water, especially in a recipe like this. So I know you probably really can't see that, but it's starting to smoke a little bit, which is a oh my gosh, that is just wonderful. Which is just a great way to go ahead and tell yourself that hey, this is kind of getting to the point of being done. In fact, I think it is done. Now I'm just going to do is just dump the rest of all of this right into my blender here. Alrighty. So that's all going to go right into the blender, and all I'm going to do is just go ahead and and turn this on, and it's just going to blend it up for us. So it's going to be super, super easy, as you can see. The longest part of this process was roasting the peppers and then having to wait for the peppers to be cooled and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and we're going to puree this. So I'm just going to let that puree for a second here. Now it is going to need a little bit of water, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop this top off here and pour, I probably poured about a quarter cup of water into this. All right, now my blender just cut out. All right, let's try this here. Not sure what's going on here. All right, there we go. When you're on live TV, that's what happens, folks. Let's see what is going on in my blender today. There we go. Sometimes you really got to push down that lid there. So. I'm going to take a peek at it now. Oh, that looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and pour some in a dish here for us. And if you could smell this, folks, it's just a lovely garlic and red pepper aroma, and it's just absolutely lovely. So I'm going to give you a kind of a good look at that. You see all the little black bits, and it's fine, you know. It's just this lovely reddish texture, reddish brown texture. I'm just going to taste a little bit of it. Predominantly red pepper, a little bit of heat from the chilies. I put 3 dried guajillo chilies in there, but not very hot at all. If you want a little hotter, you could put something like a serrano or a habanero even. I probably wouldn't go with a jalapeno because it's going to be a little bit too greeny of a flavor. You want something a little bit smokier. This is absolutely beautiful. So try it, folks. Harissa as a condiment on your favorite Middle Eastern dish or your favorite whatever dish. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susanna, and she's making falafel, which this will go good on falafel too. In fact, all the dishes made today, this would go wonderful with. Take it away, Susanna.
Thanks, Mark. Your recipe looks great. I can't wait to try and make it. Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna Dickman from Evansville, Indiana. You can follow me on eatplantsbewell.com and on Facebook, and check out my Facebook page on Mondays. My husband and I have been doing Meatless Monday Evansville since January. So we make a low-fat, plant-based recipe just like we do here on So Many Cooks. Today I'm going to make a great recipe that my family and I actually make a lot. And it's a real easy recipe to double up and freeze so that we have, some in the freezer for an easy dinner. And that is falafel. And you can see I made some the other day and plated them up so you could see the finished product, because these are going to have to be cooked and in the oven. And they are just so good and so refreshing. I just put them in a pita, and they're green. That's due to our fresh herbs, parsley, and cilantro. And that's what I love about falafel. It's just a fresh and delicious, tasty meal for you to have. So we're going to start, and there are a lot of different recipes for falafel. Some use canned chickpeas and some use dry chickpeas. I think the ones with the dry chickpeas are better. First of all, they stay together better. I've made both. And when you use the can, they have good flavor, but they crumble. They don't really stay together. So these are dried chickpeas that you have to soak. So one thing you need to do is plan ahead for this recipe. So these soaked in water. I just put them in a container and filled them with water, just enough to cover. And they have really gotten bigger. If you compare them, this was a cup of chickpeas, and I probably have 2.5 cups in here. So my soaked chickpeas are going to go in my food processor. You know, you can imagine if I hadn't soaked these, there's no way my food processor would have been able to process them. So I'm just going to put those in first and let them, I'm going to pulse them until they're crumbly. Let me go ahead and put these down so that they all get a little crumbly. And you can see it's not taking that long. Because they soaked, they really are softer, and it doesn't take that long. All right, I'm going to turn that off because I'm going to pulse it again once I add my other ingredients. So we have some fresh parsley. And I cut off, some of the stems on this were really thick, so I cut off some of the stems, but I don't, you know, typically I will leave some of the stems on. I like to add cilantro to my falafel, so this is a little bit less cilantro than my parsley. Definitely it has more of that in there. Then I've got some garlic. Making this many, this recipe will make about 20 falafel. And that was about one, it calls for 2 medium cloves, but this was a really big clove, so I just did 1. And then my spices, I have some salt, I have some cumin, and then my family likes the falafel to have a little bit of a heat, so we put like a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. That's something you can skip if you don't like it hot, or just put, you know, even 1/8 of a teaspoon. It won't be really hot, but just at the end, it'll have this nice little heat, which we love. And when we, I'll talk about the tahini sauce I made, but when we add that, you know, it goes together perfectly. All right, so let me go ahead and get this processed. I love the nice green color. It's such a refreshing recipe. Let me go ahead and just, again, I see some of my spices up there, so I'm just going to mix this up. And it's just so good. Now, I didn't get my pan out, but I'm gonna go ahead and just get a piece of parchment paper, because what we will do with this mixture is I will go ahead and, before I do that, I have one more ingredient, but we're gonna go ahead and bake these in the oven. So let me process this a little bit more. I see a little bit of chunks of my chickpeas, just so it's fully incorporated. And you can see when it's going up to the top and then it's coming back down, that is perfect. Now, we want to add these next 2 ingredients because they'll hold they'll help the falafel stay together. And this is cornstarch and baking powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on, and then I'm going to just pulse about 8 or 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let me go ahead. And again, I see some at the top. But this helps, again, to keep the falafel together when you bake them. So let me do a couple more pulses. Oh, it smells so good and so fresh. All right. Okay, I think that should be incorporated fairly well. And then the next thing that I want to do is I have a little bit of water. And I'm just going to put a tiny bit on my hands. Oops, I put a little too much. Because if you get your hands a little wet, then it won't stick. It really does make a difference. I'm just going to take out about 1.5 teaspoons, and you can see I like to use parchment paper on my pan. These will go in the oven at 375 for 10 to 15 minutes. You want to check them after 8 or so minutes, and you can turn them around if you want to, but you want them to get crispy and brown on the outside. You could also put these in your air fryer if you want to, and I would do that at 375. And again, checking them at 8 minutes, depending on what kind of air fryer you have, because I really find that air fryers really, there are a lot of varying temperatures. And I have one of the Breville ovens, so I can actually see how they're browning. If you have one of the more traditional air fryers, you might not see it. So I would check it. But that's it. So I've got them made there. Let me just wipe a little bit of them off. They'll go in the oven and they will just be so tasty. So I like to make a tahini sauce to go with this, and I already made it. It's so simple. This is just some tahini, which we know are ground sesame seeds. I have some lemon juice, some garlic. I put a little bit of cumin, so the same kind of flavors as my falafel. I did put a pinch of cayenne. That's optional if you want it or not. But it's just great drizzled on. I like to use the Ezekiel pitas, so I put in my falafel. I went ahead and cut them in half so they wouldn't roll out. Some people like to make falafels actually in little patties, and you could do that if you want to. So this is really a tiny one, but I just wanted to show you how you can do that. The tahini sauce sprinkled on, this is such a great, refreshing lunch, dinner, heck, even breakfast. I wouldn't mind having this for breakfast. All right, so I hope you are inspired to make some falafel. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. Sorry, I think I'm going to sneeze. It's allergy season already because spring, yay, we're so happy for spring, but allergies are here. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And Nancy, you're next. I can't wait to see what you're making. I always love your recipes. Thanks, everyone. Take care and be safe.
Thank you, Susanna. Your falafels look so good. I can't wait to try them. I'm Nancy Manifold, and I am going to show you how I make my lentil and vegetable stew. So many cultures have a basic, easy dish that's their go-to dish. And I think that this lentil vegetable stew is one of them. It comes from a recipe from Claudia Roden. So I don't know if you know about her in the United States, but in the UK, she's a very well-known author of Middle Eastern cuisine. And she talks about this lentil and vegetable stew of being the food of the poor. But that having been said, it is loved by the entire population. And one of the things I want to say about this recipe is that for any of you who are transitioning from omnivore to vegan, don't throw away your cookbooks, because I've been plant-based now for 6 years, and we've had this cookbook for about 20 years, and I still use it because I've over time learned to adapt recipes to be no oil and vegan. And a lot of the cookbooks that you have will have vegan recipes in them. So it's part of what I want to show you today. So this is a vegan recipe in this cookbook, and it's just fantastic. So what I've started with, because it takes longer than 20 minutes, than 10 minutes for this demonstration, I have already started cooking the lentils. So the lentils that I have used are green lentils. So lentils are legumes, and if you have a look here, this is what dried lentils look like. They're very small and not soaked yet. And then once I soak them, so this is soaked overnight, and you can see that they have plumped up. And what soaking does, you don't have to soak lentils, but what soaking does is it tenderizes them, plumps them up, and shortens the cooking time. It also means that less water is required in the recipe. So If you don't have time to soak and the recipe calls for it, then make sure that you add more water. So what I've done is I've soaked the lentils for several hours overnight, and then I have drained them and put them with fresh water, 570 mils or 1 pint of water in here, and I've cooked these already for 20 minutes, so they have started to tenderize. Lentils overall are the shortest cooking legumes, and they take about 20 to 40 minutes. So that's 20 minutes. Now what I will do is I'm going to add just a little bit more water because I've cooked these for a bit as I've prepared everything, so I've lost some of the water. So I'm adding a little bit of water. Now, what I'm going to add to this is the most basic ingredients, but it makes a delicious stew. So once that's been cooking for about 20 minutes, I'm going to turn that up just to bring it back to a simmer since I've added more water. What I'm going to add to this is 2 potatoes that have been peeled and diced. So the potatoes go in. 1 courgette or zucchini that's been diced, and it's quite a large zucchini. 1 large leek, which has been diced. Leek needs to be washed very well because you get a lot of dirt that sits within the layers of it. And 1 celery that's chopped. So all of these ingredients, all of these ingredients are inexpensive and easy to find. There's nothing exotic. So give that a stir. And what I will do then is let's stir the lentils in. Now, one of the things about lentils are they are a complete food in many ways. They are high in fiber, they're high in protein, they're a fantastic source of iron and calcium. So all of the legumes are highly nutritious. Lentils are just so easy because they cook quickly, you don't have to soak them, and they taste delicious. And the green lentils, the green lentils which I've used in this recipe, if they're not overcooked, they give a very nice bite. And so some people like to use them as a meat replacement because they have a little bit of texture to them. So there we go. So mix that up, just fits in the pot. And then putting the lid on, I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit, and then what I would do with that, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper just to taste. So it's about 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So I'm adding that in as well. And then what I would do is let that cook for another 20 minutes. And what that would do is just basically cook the vegetables until they're nice and soft. Because there's not a great deal of time, you'll have to use your imagination on that. But what I have done in the meantime is I have cooked and prepared the chopped onion and garlic. And you can see here, so one of the ways I have adapted this recipe is Middle Eastern food often requires a great deal, or calls for a great deal of olive oil. So with the Food for Life, we aim to keep any oils to an absolute minimum. And so what I have done for this recipe, which called for this to be cooked in quite a bit of oil, is I water sauteed it. And you can see, so I've added some water to the pan, heated it up, and then slowly cooked the onions and the garlic. And you can see with that, you still get a very nice, it's not quite caramelized, I haven't cooked it that long, but you get some nice color to it, nice flavor, and it cooks up really well, and there's no need for the oil. And the reason that Food for Life and Physicians Committee recommend leaving out oil is for people who are dealing with weight issues or type 2 diabetes. There is significant benefit to keeping oils and fats in the diet to a minimum because fats and oils are very high calorie. So for weight loss, it helps with weight loss to keep oils to a minimum. And for type 2 diabetes, one of the causes of type 2 diabetes is too much fat in cells that were never meant to contain fat, such as liver cells and muscle cells. So by keeping fat low in the diet, it allows fat in those cells to come out, to be cleared out, and it allows the body to become sensitive to insulin again, which is what we want. So it's really important with the recipes that you find in your old cookbooks to start to get an idea of how to water saute and to leave oil and fat out of the recipes, because there's great benefit in it. So if you have a look here, I have added, I did at the beginning add a little bit more water, but you can also see how much more water there is there now, because what happens is all of these vegetables, as they sweat, they release their water. So it's a good idea to cook this with the lid on as well, so you don't lose that water. So they sweat and release the water. So never underestimate how much water you get from the vegetables that you put in. And so ideally I would cook that for about 20 minutes, another 20 minutes. But for the sake of time, I'm now going to add the onion. This is 1 onion and 2 cloves of garlic, which I have gently sauteed, water sauteed. And I know you can't smell it, but it does smell absolutely delicious. So that is the onions and the garlic. And then what I would do just before the end of cooking, but I'll do it now, is here's 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, chopped. Add that in. Parsley is a very good source of iron, by the way. It's very high in iron. And lemon juice. And what the lemon juice does is it lightens the flavor nicely, gives a nice flavor. But also, the lentils and the parsley are a very good source of iron. And what the vitamin C does in the lemon juice is it makes it easier for the body to absorb the iron in these foods. So it all works together. So there we go. That is the stew. That will need about another 15 minutes of cooking time. But at the end of it, it is unbelievably good. You have to take my word for it. It is so simple and the flavors are so simple, but it tastes so good. And that would be, I eat it on its own with some sourdough bread, or you can serve it on a bed of couscous. You can have it however you like, but it is a very nice stew. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I am going to pass you over now to Jonan, who is going to make chickpea Dürüm wraps. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So thank you very much.
Hello everybody, thank you Nancy for the nice introduction and that delicious looking stew you made. I think it must be very good on cold days, rainy, drizzly. Have a bowl of that. One would be happy and warmed up from inside. Yeah, here we are in Abu Dhabi once again, and this time our theme is so many Middle Eastern dishes. We came up with this idea after the devastating earthquakes in Turkey, which also had aftershocks and earthquakes in Syria. Both countries were very badly hurt, and now almost 2 months into it, the earthquake hit Turkey on February the 6th. We're almost 2 months into it, and yeah, we are 2 months into it. It's April 8th. Therefore, we wanted to bring the issue back on the agenda. In the first few days, the devastation was huge, and world news were pumping this information out, asking for help, etc. Well, it hasn't stopped yet. There's much needed in both countries, and there are amazing volunteer efforts ongoing, helping people, and your help would really go a long ways to help the populations both in southeastern Turkey and in Syria. Syria on top has been really devastated by war for many years. So I'd like to suggest a few of my favorites to donate to, if you would. the World Health Organization, and they have amazing situation reports for both countries. UNICEF, which is helping the children in both countries, and in Turkey, which is I'm more partial to it because I am originally from Turkey, and this time the earthquake hit very close to my heart. I lost a friend in the collapsed hotel in Adıyaman. May he rest in peace. And friends and family of friends have been lost and gone. So I feel for my friends who have lost so much. I feel for my country, and I feel for everyone who's been affected by this. However, I celebrate the volunteers who are doing their best. One such group is called From Soil to Plate. It's a farmers cooperative, and they provide the food to the volunteers to cook the more than 200 meals a day, 200,000 meals, sorry. The numbers are huge. So the volunteers who are working with Topraktan Tabağa with the help of Mrs. Ebru Baybara Demir, she is amazing. You can also follow her on Instagram to see how these volunteers are helping and also getting personal satisfaction in being there in this amazingly devastated area. People are building their lives from nothing, and entire neighborhoods and cities have been lost. And so along with that, not only did they lose personal belongings, their homes, etc., but their memories are gone. The corner cafe that used to go and have a coffee and chat with your friend is no longer there. The school you studied at, the church you went to, or the mosque you went to, they're all gone, unfortunately. It's a very culturally diverse part of the country, and the devastation did not spare anyone. So I would like to urge you, please, to help any organization that you fully trust in and you think would do a good job, and get more help to these people. Another good one in the US, for example, is Bridge to Türkiye. They are doing amazing work since the very beginning of the earthquake. So please help. I can't stress the importance of the situation, and even 2 months into it, things have not really gotten much better. So having said that, I'm going to celebrate the culinary aspects of that region. The southeastern Turkey is just amazing for the wonderful foods they have. Over the years, I made note here, since the beginning of our So Many Cooks shows, even from the first show in May 2020, I started with lentil soup, which is a staple in the earthquake zone in Turkey. They pretty much have it for breakfast and any time thereafter during the day. I have also done spicy bulgur köfte in July of 20. I've done a hummus with a twist on November of 20. I've done zucchini pancakes in June of 20. I've done a gavurda salad, a wonderful mixed salad with amazing flavors from Gaziantep, one of the cities that got hit in September 2021. And in July 21, I did a tabbouleh, which is, of course, everybody knows it's from the Middle East area. And September 2022, I have done cuisines, which is a typical dish from the southeast parts of Turkey and also other countries in the Middle East. For example, the dish that Dilip has done, Muhammara, is very also particular, and I learned it years ago when I was a little girl, because I had friends from Antakya who used that for breakfast even, and they call it cevizli biber, pepper with walnuts. And it's one of my favorite recipes, and I'm so glad Dilip shared it today. My colleagues are going to share also amazing recipes. So do go back. I'm telling you all of these because I want to encourage you to go back to our website and flip through the recipe booklets, which are there for your use, and find these Middle Eastern recipes or any other recipe that you would like to. So I come to my recipe today. It's a chickpea wrap. In the local language, we call it nohut dürüm, or nohut dürümü. It's pretty much street food or any time food, you can visit the city of Gaziantep or any of the other cities, and you'll find a corner store which is making nohut dürüm. The ingredients are very humble. Of course, the chickpeas and some onions. I use red onion, but you can use whatever onion you like. Red pepper, parsley, mint, tomatoes, some lemon, which will come in handy, and then spices, some chili flakes, cumin, of course, the champion of legume dishes, sumac, which is very widely used in Turkey in different dishes, some hot chili, salt, pepper, and then you also have to have a wrap to serve it with. I have already started a little bit and toasted the spices. In the first step, I asked you to toast the spices a little bit so their aroma is accentuated. And then you put the chickpeas in it. So I have in here the cumin, the chili flakes, and the hot pepper. And you basically toast them. Of course, in the original they use oil. I prefer not to use it. Therefore, I've saved a little bit of the aquafaba, the juices that the chickpeas came in. I have used a already cooked one. I'm lucky to find these organic ones, which have nothing in them except for chickpeas and water, no salt even added. So they're awesome. Or you can cook your own. I hear them sizzling, which is a good sign. But maybe I will add a few drops of this because I want the spices to really stick to the chickpeas. So here they are. So you let them cook. Of course, I give amounts in the recipe, but adjust to your liking because we're using hot red pepper and chili flakes and cumin, which is also a strong flavor. So you do as you wish. Before we started, I also, as a first step, I chopped the onions very thinly and the peppers and the parsley. So you may see that here. They're nicely chopped and mixed. You can see it's really small. And I love how in the Middle East and also in Turkey, the green herbs are used so liberally, like the parsley is used in abundance, and I love that. And mint as well. I mean, think of tabbouleh. What is that but parsley and mint with a tiny bit of bulgur added to it. So these are here. I haven't yet added the sumac because I want to wait. I don't want this to get too juicy. This is for afterwards when you have everything ready. And I also have some tomatoes chopped. So this time I used cherry tomatoes because they were the best looking ones. The good news is all of these veggies, except the lemon, they all came from the UAE where I live. So more and more we're finding locally grown vegetables, which is really delightful for me. Here's my chickpeas. They're roasting. They're already cooked, so there's no need to really roast them. But they are nicely mixed with the spices. At this stage, if you want, you can swoosh them a little to help them stay in your wrap. Otherwise, they get a little wobbly. But you don't need to. The idea is not to make a hummus. This is just a different style. So I let them cook a little bit more with the spices so that they're nicely mixed. And I just want to share a trick that I do. When I cut my peppers, you know that inside there's a big vein. So I gently go in and take that vein out together with the seeds. it helps with easier digestion for some people who have a harder time digesting raw peppers. So here it is. And I'm going to put this here, take my knives out of the way, safety first. And I want to just show you the wonderful flatbread I found. This is a huge piece. I cut it in two. Look at that. This is a whole wheat flatbread with no added preservatives or anything. It says no sugar, no fat added, and low salt. The only ingredients are whole wheat flour, corn flour, salt, and water. So I was lucky to find such a thing, but you use whatever wrap you find. Or this is so yummy, you can serve it on rice or bulgur or your other favorite grain. So here it is. I'm going to put a little bit more of aquafaba. Maybe you can hear the sizzling. We're almost there, folks. If you can just smell this, the cumin and the other spices are awesome. Done. So I will have my wrap here. So the idea, I'm going to put these here and bring this right in front. I'm going to put the chickpeas. Look at that. Put as much as you wish. I think I have enough for one and a little bit extra. So here's the trick. We have our veggies already cut. Squeeze a bit of lemon, as much as you want. I like a lot, so I will do a few times. Now we sprinkle the mix of veggies with some sumac, and then we put it on our chickpeas. And you can, of course, sprinkle a little bit more of the herbs and the spices. I'm going to put a little bit more of chili flakes. I've already put some cumin, a sprinkle of pepper, a pinch of salt, just a tiny pinch. Another squeeze of lemon. I'm catching the pips. Okay, here we go. And a few tomatoes if you wish. And last but not least, some mint leaves. Now we're done. This is amazingly aromatic. It just looks lovely, and I'm going to go like that, and like that, and like that. And here's my wrap. And if you don't mind, I'm going to give it a bite. It's so thin, this wrap. I can't talk. It's so flavorful, so simple, and so delicious. Word of caution, if you go to the southeast parts of Turkey and you see this on the street, ask before you eat it, because they often cook the chickpeas with beef bones. So I prefer to have our vegan way. This is all, folks. I really would like to encourage you to re-look into this earthquake zone. Do what you can to help them. And before I go, I'd like to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Angelita, in South Carolina. And take it away. She's going to do a couscous dish.
Thank you,
Bye,
John.
and see you again in Abu Dhabi. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angelita Hughes. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. want to thank everyone for spending their Saturday with us. Here in Greenville, it's raining and it's cold. I just want to extend my condolences, my thoughts, and my prayers to everyone affected by the horrible earthquake in Turkey, to all the family and to all the loved ones. What I'm going to be making today is couscous with toasted pine nuts and mushrooms. I went ahead and already toasted my pine nuts for the sake of time. I love pine nuts, but they can be a little bit pricey, so you can substitute your favorite nut with this. It's really good with walnuts, and it's really good with sunflower seeds as well. So I've got my mushrooms going right now, and I diced those up. I'm just using a white button mushroom. You can use any mushroom that you like. If you want to use canned mushrooms, that would be fine. Jarred mushrooms is great. If you want to rehydrate your mushrooms, that would be perfect as well. The recipe is in the booklet, so I'm kind of go over it just a little bit. So in the pan that I toasted the pine nuts, I toasted over a medium heat. You don't want to ever toast any of your nuts in a high heat. You want to keep it kind of like medium and then just let it take its time. In a really high heat, what is going to happen, it's going to toast the outside, but the inside still is going to be a little bit raw. So it's just cooking the outside. So we're going to do medium heat. I take the pine nuts out, I put them in a little container, and then I add my mushrooms to that same pan. And what I do with my mushrooms is once I dice them, I kind of rinse them a little bit in some water, and then it'll retain a little bit of water. So when I'm cooking them, that helps for me not having to add any oil to it or for them to dry out. So once I've got those cooking, I am going to add my garlic. And this comes together really, really quickly. We're going to cook this for about 2 to 3 minutes. Again, it just depends on the temperature and how much heat you're getting out of your stove. My gas stove, to me, seems like it gets a lot hotter than an electric stove or an induction top. So now once we get that going, we're going to add our parsley. And I didn't have any parsley, and that's the beauty of cooking this way. I use cilantro, which I like cilantro a lot better. And we're gonna add the lemon zest. Now, I know sometimes they wait and put the lemon zest at the end. I kind of like to cook it because I love for it to get infused and for it to infuse the rest of the food. Okay, now we're going to turn this down to the lowest setting, and we're going to let it cook for a couple minutes. And it goes by really fast. Oh, it just smells so right in here. It smells really, really good. If you don't like mushrooms, you can add any other kind of vegetable to this. You can add any kind of, you can add squash, the yellow squash. You can add zucchini. You can probably even add some diced eggplant. It's just play with it. Have fun. Add your favorite vegetable to it. All right, got that going. Now I'm going to add my couscous. So what I'm using, there's 2 types of couscous, and what we found in our local store with this is Israeli couscous. We just cooked it according to the package, and then I let it cool down just a little bit, and I rinsed it in cold water to remove all the excess starch. I'm gonna add this in there. All right, we're just going to stir everything, make sure everything gets coated. If it's too dry for you, you're more than welcome to add just a tiny bit of liquid to it. You can do a vegetable broth, or you can just do water. But I think it's perfect because the way it is, because we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice here towards the end. All right, so now I've got everything incorporated. Now I'm going to add my freshly squeezed lemon juice. Oh, this smells so good. You can add some roasted red peppers to this. If you've been following this whole segment, you can see where they use a lot of roasted red peppers. If you have any leftovers, save them, and you can add them to this right here just to brighten it up, make it even prettier. So we're adding that. And then we just take it off the stove. That's it, we're done. Now, you can add your toasted nuts to the top of it. You can put a lid on there, or you can just, if you're gonna serve it right away, pour it into your serving dish. Add your toasted pine nuts to it, and you're ready to go. The recipe does call for some salt, but that's totally optional. So I've got 3 options here. I've got the Himalayan salt, but if you're salt free, you don't have to use this. You can use black limes, and I buy these at the Indian market. And all it is just black limes that I put in my spice blender and made a powder out of it. So you can add that to it, and that helps brighten it up even more. But it does give it these little specks, if you don't mind that. Or you can also use sumac if you don't want to use any salt for this. I'm going to try it with the sumac. It gives it a nice little smoky flavor. And you can add some pepper flakes to it if you like a little bit of heat. And if you have any left over, you can just let it cool down completely and then store it in the fridge. It should keep for a couple of days. Another way to serve this is to put it inside some little lettuce cups, and it makes a cute little appetizer. Again, thank you so much for spending Saturday with us. This is my segment. Up next, we have Carolyn, who's going to be making, I can't pronounce the name, sorry, shawarma sandwich.
Shawarma.
Shawarma.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize, but I know it's going to be amazing because she makes amazing food. So take it.
Thank you, Angelita. Yours looked fabulous. I can't wait to try it. Good to see you. Hi, welcome to Montgomery, Alabama. I'm Carolyn Strickland, and like Angelita said, I'm making shawarma sandwiches, which I hope I'm pronouncing it right. When I first met my husband, I remember he told me he liked shawarma sandwiches, and I'm sure I just looked at him with a very blank look on my face because I had no idea what he was talking about. So traditional shawarma sandwiches, or shawarma, it originated in the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire is what we now know as parts of Turkey. So so it's originally from Turkey. It is a very much Middle Eastern food. And there's a difference. So you might think it sounds a lot like a gyro, but a gyro is actually originated in Greece, and shawarma sandwiches originated in the Ottoman Empire. And so the difference really in them is that shawarma sandwiches, shawarma spices are much more, they use a lot more spices than a traditional gyro. And there's just a much more depth of flavor. And I think you marinate the meat a little bit longer. So I'm talking about meat because traditional shawarma is layers, thinly sliced layers of traditionally lamb or chicken or veal or that kind of thing that's thinly sliced and layered on a rotisserie. And then it's cooked slow over an open fire for quite a while, being marinated the whole time. So obviously we are not making it with lamb or chicken or veal. But what I'm making it with is soy curls. So if you've never heard of soy curls, I'm going to introduce you to them. So soy curls, you can also do this with tofu. And if you look at the recipe, you will see that you can use tofu instead. And maybe use extra firm tofu, drain it really well. This is soy curls, though they actually are not highly processed. So it seems like they would be, but they're really not. The only ingredient in them is whole non-GMO soybeans. That's it. That's the only ingredient. And Butler Foods that makes soy curls has some sort of proprietary process for doing it. They don't really share that process. My guess is somehow the soybeans are dehydrated somehow, but they're cooked and pulled, and it's got very much like a meat-like texture to it, but you do have to rehydrate it. So they come dehydrated always. And then there are no preservatives. There's no additives, no preservatives at all. So you do have to rehydrate them. And if you're not going to use it right away, you keep it in the refrigerator or the freezer because it can go bad because there are no preservatives. So I'm going to set that aside because I've already rehydrated some. And the way I rehydrate them is with a chicken flavored broth. And I've already rehydrated them, but as you can see, so they look a lot like chicken. It's very interesting. There's bigger chunks and smaller chunks like that. And you want to squeeze them out and get all the liquid back out of it. And so I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to make a marinade because traditional shawarma, the meat is marinated. I'm not sure what I'm hearing, Dilip, but I'm hearing somebody else's kitchen right now. I'm not sure who that is, but it's not me. Okay, so I have a half a cup of non-dairy yogurt. It is a soy yogurt that I made myself. You could also buy store-bought non-dairy yogurt, but keep in mind you want to go with just plain unsweetened, so definitely not vanilla. That would be really gross. So just plain unsweetened, half a cup of non-dairy yogurt. And then, like I said, in a traditional shawarma, they use a lot of spice, So, okay. So what I'm adding is a whole teaspoon of ground cumin, a whole teaspoon of ground coriander, which, as you know, is the seeds of a cilantro plant, a whole teaspoon of smoked paprika, one of my favorite spices, a whole teaspoon of onion powder, will come out of there, a half a teaspoon of allspice, a half a teaspoon of cardamom, and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of salt. So if you're on a salt-free diet, omit that, but it's just a little pinch. And then we're adding 2 cloves of garlic. I think it's 2 cloves. Let's see. 4 cloves. I'm sorry, 4 cloves of garlic. It's a lot of garlic. But remember, this is for the marinade. So, okay, 4 cloves of garlic. The juice and the zest of 1 lemon. So that's the juice and the zest. So you want to make sure you get an organic lemon if you're going to use the zest. So it's the juice and the zest. Okay. And when I zest lemons, I use a zester like this one and then just put it over the bowl that I'm using. And I've already done it, but zest, run it across the top and get all the outside off of it. Don't get the white part, just the yellow part, or else it'll get a little bit bitter. And then we're going to take a fork and whisk that all together. And it makes a really aromatic, it smells amazing, really aromatic marinade. You want to make sure you get it all whisked together. And then I'm dumping in the soy curls. So soy curls are interesting because once I've marinated them, once I've rehydrated them, they're nice and plump. And they kind of remind me weirdly of chicken, but you can squeeze it and still probably get a little more liquid out. I think I squeezed them pretty well. So the reason to squeeze them is we want them to soak up that marinade. So we'll dump all that in. Okay, and then toss that around with the sauce, with that marinade, and get them all really well coated. Okay. And then you really want to let it sit for about, I don't know, 4 hours overnight, whatever. But you do want to let it sit for a little bit and really soak up that marinade and really just get infused, or, marinate in the in that sauce for a few hours at least. So, but we'll just pretend we did that. So it's all covered in the marinade. And then I'm going to take a pan lined with parchment paper. And once it's marinated, pour it out onto the pan and spread it out into one kind of even layer. And then, let's see, get it all spread out here so I can show you what that looks like. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I can show you what that looks like. So it's one big pan of marinated soy curls and then roasted in the oven at 375. If you have a convection oven, you might want to go a little bit lower on the roast setting, maybe 370, 20 to 25 minutes. Once it's starting to get browned, and they're already cooked, so it's not like you're eating anything raw, except I guess the garlic. But so you might want to let that cook for a little bit, 20 to 25 minutes. Take a look at it, stir it every now and then. So this is what it looks like when it comes out. So I just did a pan already, and this is them cooked, which they taste incredible. Oh my goodness, they're so good. Okay, and then what we're going to do is make sandwiches out of it. So while the soy curls are roasting, make your sauces. And I have a really cool sauce to show you. I can get all the ingredients over here. Okay, so we're using tahini, garlic, coconut aminos or regular liquid aminos, sriracha sauce, lemon juice, and I think that's it, and date paste. Okay, so I have a couple of cloves of garlic already minced in my little bowl, and I'm adding 1/3 cup of tahini, and I'm using this kind, the Mighty Sesame Company organic tahini, and it's pourable, which really helps. So 1/3 cup of tahini to 2 cloves of garlic, and then 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. So this is a sweet and spicy tahini sauce. So 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, and a couple of teaspoons of liquid aminos. I'm using coconut aminos, so a couple of teaspoons. There's 1, there's 2. I'm just eyeballing it. And then about a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of sriracha sauce. If you like it really spicy, you can go with more sriracha, but maybe a tablespoon of sriracha. And then the date syrup is about a tablespoon of date syrup. So you can make your own date syrup. It's really very easy. Or if you wanted to make it easier on yourself, you can buy Date Lady or one of the other date syrups that's on the market. This is an organic date syrup. So I'm going to use about a tablespoon of that. You could also use maple syrup if you prefer. Date syrup is a little more in keeping with the Middle Eastern theme, though, since dates grow in the Middle East. And then we are whisking that all up, and it makes a delicious sauce to drizzle over your sandwich. So that's one of the things that I understand about shawarma. I've never actually had a real, like, traditional shawarma sandwich with the meat. So I'm just guessing. But from what I understand about shawarma sandwiches is they are very drippy. And that's one of the things people enjoy about them, is making a sandwich that all the juices drip down your chin. So making a really yummy sauce like this is a really cool idea, because then it's going to probably drip just like a regular shawarma sandwich. You could also do a garlic sauce if you want to, which I have a garlic dressing recipe also on the recipe. If you find the link to the recipes, there's a garlic dressing using plant-based mayo, which I have a bonus recipe on there for making your own mayo. So you could use a garlic dressing. One of my favorite things to do is actually use the spicy tahini, sweet and spicy tahini dressing, and some of the garlic dressing. So both of them, I like things a little saucy. So, okay. So then we'll make a sandwich. So you could use a pita, you could use a flatbread, you could use a lavash, You could find the gluten-free kind if you want to, if you need that. And then just load, and you don't want to cut it open into a pita bread, but you do, you don't want to cut it open because it's going to be saucy enough, it'll drip right through. So just kind of fold up your sandwich, your pita bread in half, and then layer a little bit of the soy curls, the shawarma meat onto it, and maybe some lettuce or chopped fresh spinach. And how about some, I love broccoli sprouts, microgreens. So these are microgreens. And then this is from my husband, so I'll leave the tomatoes off. He doesn't do tomatoes. So we will add a little bit of this yummy sauce and drizzle it over the top. Yum. Okay. And I'm going to hand that to him because I know he's standing here ready to eat it. So, it's dripping down. So I just want to tell everybody, yes, we are still, there you go. Thank you. Take that. Okay. You want more sauce? Okay. Yeah. More sauce. Okay. More sauce. He's a saucy guy. Yes, we are definitely thinking about the people in Turkey and Syria, like Janan said, and I know she's from Turkey, so that was very interesting to hear her talk about that. And our hearts go out to them for sure. And I want to tell everybody happy Easter, happy Ramadan, and happy Passover. They're all happening at the same time right now. And before I send you over to Karen, just remember to ask questions during the Q&A so you can be entered in our drawing today. And I'm going to send you to Karen in Austin, Texas. She's making something with eggplant, and I'm really excited about that because I love eggplant. So I can't wait to see Karen. It sounds great.
Thanks. Yours looks delicious.
Thanks. It's pretty yummy. Bye.
All right. Welcome to my kitchen here in Austin, Texas. It's Karen Osborne, myfoodfitnessandfun.com, and I'm going to make mutabal, which is an eggplant dip. It's what we in the West kind of know as baba ganoush, but in the Middle East, the baba ganoush is usually made with it's eggplant, roasted eggplant, and pomegranate molasses and tahini. It could have tahini, it could not, the sesame paste. And then it might have chopped tomatoes, chopped onions, parsley, mint, something like that. So there's just slight difference over there. And even within different regions and different families, you're going to find differences in recipes, different spices, different flavorings. But the classic eggplant dip, just with the sesame paste, the eggplant, we're just using like 5 simple ingredients, 6. If you're leaving out salt, it's 5. So I'm using smoked paprika because it traditionally has a smoky flavor, and you can roast the eggplant in the oven. That's what I'm doing because it's less mess. I just put it on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet, but you could roast them on an open flame like Dilip and Mark roasted the red peppers, but I'm going to use the smoked paprika for my smoky flavor. And I did roast them in the oven. I'm going to show you a picture of that. I just put them on a cookie sheet, see this way, and put the oven at 425 degrees, and then left them. The recipe says 40 to 45 minutes, but I checked them and they weren't quite collapsed, and so I left them about 10 more minutes. And then when they collapse, you just take them out of the oven, let them cool, and enough for you to handle it. And then the skin comes off. You can peel it off really easily. And then I just put the eggplants in on a plate lined with paper towels to drain for about half an hour to get rid of some of that liquid. So you didn't have to watch me do all that. And there's a lot of different kinds of eggplants. I have the Italian eggplant, and the recipe calls for 3 medium eggplants. And you say, what's a medium eggplant? Maybe something between half a pound and a pound. So if you let them grow really big and the seeds become really big, and that's where you get some of the bitterness. Some eggplant varieties are more bitter than others. But this is what it looks like after I did all that. And I'm just gonna, it's so easy once you do all that. I'm gonna put my screen down so you can see what I'm doing. It's just smoked paprika, lemon juice. I'm using garlic granules. You can use fresh garlic if you like that bite. I like fresh garlic cooked. It's just a little bit strong in this to me. So I'm putting the eggplant in the food processor. I'm just going to add all of the other ingredients. The lemon juice has the vitamin C. Eggplant is actually really a healthy food. It's got a lot of essential amino acids, which your body can't make, so you need to consume them through food. It's got tryptophan, which actually gets converted to serotonin. It's like helps regulate your moods. It then gets converted to melatonin, which regulates your sleep cycle, your circadian rhythm. It has phenylalanine, which converts to tyrosine. It also contains tyrosine, but what tyrosine is used to make adrenal hormones. So this is really good adrenal supportive recipe. So I'm going to add a little tahini, and some families like replace some of the tahini with a yogurt, which you could do a plant-based yogurt. Some don't use the tahini at all and just use the yogurt. It's your choice. It makes it creamy. It also has some tyrosine, phenylalanine. I'm going to use a little bit of salt, but you can leave it out if you don't want to. I'm using the garlic granules and my smoked paprika. How easy is that? Just dump it all in. And going to turn it on. I think I'm going to mute myself while I run this so that my sound comes back for sure. And that is it. You can process it as smooth or as chunky as you like. That's your choice. Traditionally, it has olive oil in it, but we don't need the oil. The eggplant actually makes it nice and creamy. The eggplant and the tahini, really don't need oil. And it's good with pita or cucumbers. This, I made the pita, it's not really pita, it's gluten-free. I made it with just quinoa and water. You could do another flatbread with lentils and red lentils and water. And if you want to garnish it with a little more smoked paprika, you can do that or not. But how easy is that? And it's so good. So hope you guys try it and enjoy it. Let us know how you like it. I'm going to send you back to Dilip for Q&A. So take it back, Dilip.
We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
There you are. Now I can hear you.
Thanks, Sharon. That was wishing that you were my neighbor so I could try some of your dish. It was great. So welcome, everybody. I think we have, excuse me, sounds like a few new people, and we have a number of regulars. So welcome to everybody. We hope that you've enjoyed the show so far. This is the part of the show where we have a question and answer session, and a number of us have rejoined. About half of us are here. We're happy to take your questions. Now, questions that come in from this point qualify for our giveaways. Maybe, Karen, can you take a moment and tell us what our two giveaways are?
Yes, we have one set of Middle Eastern spices, and then we have a subscription to Veg News Magazine, a year-long subscription.
Right, 2 very nice prizes. So I have some questions to start with, but as questions come in, we'll take them from the audience. Oh, great, Jacqueline, you're new. Welcome. So glad that you joined us. Be curious to know how you found us, but we're glad you did. So, and Jacqueline, if you can transfer your comment into a question, you're in the running for prizes. And looks like the first question is with Lee Hay. So Lee Hay, are soy curls a whole food? And I'll let Carolyn take this.
Yes, actually, they are considered a whole food because they are very minimally processed. Like I said, Butler Foods doesn't really share their proprietary process for how they make them. I know they're dehydrated, they're cooked soybeans, but the only ingredient is whole non-GMO soybeans. That's it. There is no other ingredient in it. I'm not sure exactly how they make it because they don't share that information, but they do consider it a whole form of soy. So, and I saw a question earlier come through about where do you get them? So you can order them on Amazon, or you could go to butlerfoods.com and order them directly from Butler Foods. Sometimes they have sales, which are good. You can buy them in bags of 6, which gives you a better discount to buy them in larger bags. I bought them in a pack of 3 actually on Amazon because I was trying to get them here quickly, but it takes a little longer when it's coming from Butler Foods than it does from Amazon, because Amazon, if you've got Amazon Prime, then you're going to get it in a couple days. So it depends on how fast you want it, but it's definitely non-GMO. And according to Butler Foods, it is very minimally processed and considered a whole form of soy. So.
And Lee, by the way, while Carolyn was answering that, Karen mentioned to me that you were one of the winners last time of flaxseed, but we never got your email. So if you could please email Karen@somanycooks.com, she'll be happy to send you your flaxseed. So that's for Lee Hay. So we'd love to get you your prize from last time, Lee. Question came up from Bonnie and about pepper seeds. I was told it was perfectly fine to eat the seeds in a pepper. What are your thoughts? I have an answer, but then I'd like to hear Karen's approach as well. So my answer, so I was teaching a Food for Life class for teens day before yesterday, and we were making smoothies, including apple. And I told the kids that I was working with the teenagers. And if any of you guys are watching, hello. I know a couple of you said you were going to try to watch. So we were talking about the fact that there's a little bit of arsenic in apple seeds. And if you're watching, if you can make a comment of what we talked about in terms of the arsenic. Yes, there's a tiny bit of arsenic, but it's such a tiny amount that you'd have to eat like a barrel full of them for there to be any impact. And so generally when you blend, it's good to use the whole food, including the seeds. In terms of pepper, I don't know of any harm of eating the seeds. I don't generally like the taste or the texture, depending on what I'm doing, but I don't go out of my way to remove all of them because I don't think there's any disadvantage. But if anybody would know, it would be Karen. Karen, are there any reasons not to eat the seeds?
They're not harmful, but they would probably, if you ate seeds, just go straight through you. And, okay. And they are bitter. They're a little bitter.
And by the way, Karen, Lee did send you an email. So Lee, can you send both Karen and me an email? You can send it to Karen@somanycooks.com and Dilip, DILIP, @somanycooks.com, and we'll get you the flaxseed. I'm sorry that we didn't get that for you. Okay, a bunch more questions. So Mary Cooper, and welcome. I think you're new, Mary, and if you are, whether you're new or not, welcome to the show. What is sumac? Sumac is this wonderful, it's a flower. I've been doing a lot of teaching at a Turkish cultural center, and I've been learning a lot about Turkey. I'm not of Turkish background. I've always wanted to visit, though. I've had lots of friends from Turkey. So sumac is a flower, and they the dried part of the flower they use to make this spice called sumac. I like sumac. If those of you who've seen the show know, I love citrus, and sumac is kind of a citrusy flavor. It's like a brown spice. I have it right here in the kitchen. You can get sumac seed or ground sumac. I have both, and I've used the seed a few times, but I love using the sumac. I used it with dinner last night, for example. It has this nice subtle citrus flavor. Okay, here's a question from Adrian. And Karen, you're keeping track of all who are asking questions. Right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Adrian Butler, welcome back, Adrian. Do I need to be concerned with breast cancer and soy curls? So who would like to take that? Carolyn is nodding. Why didn't you take that, Carolyn?
No. So that is such a huge myth in our country that soy somehow causes breast cancer, when the exact opposite is true. So it turns out whole forms of soy actually protect us from breast cancer. They contain something called phytoestrogen, which actually binds to the estrogen receptors in our bodies and blocks estrogen. So if you have an estrogen positive breast cancer, whole forms of soy protect us from breast cancer, not cause it. So it is a misconception and a myth perpetuated by forces that don't want you to eat soy. It is very unfortunate that people feel that way about soy, because soy is actually super healthy for you. In its whole form, soy can take the form of tofu, edamame. Edamame in a Japanese restaurant is actually just baby soybeans, soy milk, tempeh, soy curls, miso. They're all whole forms of soy that protect us against breast cancer. In fact, there was a study done probably about 8 or 10 years ago at this point, but it involved 27,000 breast cancer survivors, and it was an observational study. So it did not involve asking them to change their diets or do anything different, but it had 27,000 breast cancer survivors eat their regular diets and keep a diary of what they were eating. And at the end of the study, which went on for 7 years, they found that the people who ate the most whole forms of soy during the week had a reduced risk of recurrence of breast cancer by about 27 or 29% reduced risk of breast cancer recurrence, and a 31% reduced risk of death of all causes. So it turns out whole forms of soy actually protect us. So whole forms of soy would be different than the kind that we find in things like a bag of Doritos. When it says contains soy, that would not be a whole form of soy. So when they remove the soy protein,
textured vegetable
or
protein.
TVP, that kind of thing. But whole forms of soy would be edamame, soy milk, tofu, miso, tempeh, and soy curls. So they are actually good for you and protective against breast cancer and the recurrence of breast cancer.
And Bonnie has a question for you as well, Carolyn. Carolyn, if you freeze the soy curls, do you let them thaw out before using, or doesn't matter?
No, doesn't really matter. You can just pour. So when you make the broth to rehydrate them, I just pour boiling water over them and it rehydrates them really quickly. They actually get to be almost doubled in size. So you want to do, if you do half a package, which is what I did today, a package is about 4 ounces. Because this is an 8-ounce package, so I did 4 ounces of it, and then 2 cups of boiling chicken flavored, vegan chicken broth, and poured it over the top. You could just use boiling water. You don't have to use chicken broth. You could use boiling water as well, but you want it to be really hot because it's going to soak up a lot faster.
And before we look at Mary's question, one thing I want to caution you about is if you're making dinner for some friends who are vegan, it's always good to kind of find out what their preferences are. So, some people, for example, don't like broccoli. Some people love broccoli. But one thing that I like is I've been a vegan for a long time, for about 25 years or something like that. More than Carolyn's been alive, right? So.
Right. Exactly.
and so I don't like things that taste like dead chickens or dead cows. And so if I were going to Carolyn's house, I wish I were lucky enough. I've never been to your house. Maybe this December, right?
Maybe so, yeah.
Although you'll be very busy then, but we'll see.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
I'm sure we'll get to at least see the house.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well.
Maybe.
So if Carolyn were to invite me to her house and she'd make something with like this vegan chicken broth, I would say, can you make a portion without the vegan chicken broth? Because I don't like things that remind me of, that have those flavors. So it's good these products are available, but may not appeal to everybody. Mary had another question. So TVP is not a whole form of soy. That is correct. It's a fractionated soy. Purists, I know one purist who actually says tofu is actually not a whole form of soy because it's been smushed up, but that's minimally processed. And the people I trust, I trust this person too, but except for him, everybody else I like loves soy. And I don't know if Karen, you can bring up, or Carolyn, the soy fact sheet that we have for PCRM. That would be a good thing to share. So Brenda Davis, for example, loves tofu, and we do too in PCRM. tofu is considered a minimally processed food. I know there's one test for something that's a whole food. Does it look like Mother Nature grew? And of course, tofu doesn't look anything like soybeans, but it's minimally processed. So, but TVP is not a whole form of soy. Years ago, actually, it was Brenda who told me I was dabbling with TVP. This is like 20 years ago, and Brenda said she might be on the show. So if you're there, Brenda, feel free to pitch in. But I think I made a tomato sauce and I mixed some TVP in, and she mentioned to me TVP is not particularly healthy and it's very processed. And I've only used it a handful of times. I used it to make chili or a sauce. And I'm welcome to stand corrected by either of you, Karen or Carolyn, but I haven't used TVP in decades. But I think if you want to use it once in a while, you're making an enchilada sauce or you're making, chili, and you do it couple times a year, it's probably fine. And there are probably some benefits in terms of the protein and some of the fiber. And I can't remember what the disadvantages are. But if you're using it occasionally, it's probably okay. But I'm happy to stand corrected by either of you guys. No corrections?
I agree. I haven't used TVP in years either, Dilla.
Okay. And then Adrian is sent a whole soy. So please ask that again. I'm not sure what you're asking there. A question came from Millie. Let's add Millie's name to the drawing as well. And unfortunately, Nancy's not able to be here. She had to leave after her presentation. For Nancy's falafel recipe, if I make them as patties instead of balls, how do I adjust the air fryer time or temperature? So what I would suggest for this is air fryers, ovens in general vary. Each one is different. So I can't remember what time she mentioned, but the ball is going to be thicker, the patty is going to be thinner, and you're going to cook more evenly. I can't remember what her recipe said. Let's say it said 12 minutes. What I would do is about 2/3 into that, so maybe after 8 minutes or something like that, I would start checking and keeping an eye, and then stop it when you feel it's cooked sufficiently. So just be careful. Thanks for asking that, Millie. All right, here's another question on TVP from Janice. Good to see you, Janice. How is TVP made to make it to be processed versus tempeh and tofu? So tofu is just squished soybeans. That's basically it. It's just soybeans. That is the pulp of soybeans. That's what tofu is. Tempeh is not squished. It's the whole soybean, and we add a mold to bring it together into a cake. So it's considered unprocessed or very minimally processed. I don't know how you make TVP. As I recall, you have to add high temperature and you break it into little pieces, something like that. Do either of you guys know more about TVP and why it's considered a processed food and how it's made?
Not really. It's been years since I've tried it.
All right. And then there was a question about yogurt from Colleen Fleming. Good to see you, Colleen. Did you use a store-bought yogurt or did you make your own? And before Carolyn answers that, I did post my recipe. In fact, while the show was going on, I ate 2 big bowls of my yogurt. I make vegan yogurt all the time. I mean, I make soy-based vegan yogurt. It's so easy to make your own yogurt. All you do is you have to get the pure soy milk. So I understand West Soy has now, some of their soy products their milks are no longer West Soy. They sold it to a company called something that sounds like West Soy. So it may not be true anymore, but Eden Soy for sure. And I think Trader Joe's makes a soy milk that has only organic soybeans and filtered water. That's it. No flavoring, nothing else. So that soy milk with a teaspoon or so of your last batch or a favorite vegan yogurt you find in the store, and you ferment it. So you culture it. I put it in my Instant Pot. It has a yogurt button, and I ferment it for 13 hours. I like it sour. If you don't like it sour, try 8 hours. And if you like it more sour, try 15 hours. You don't need an Instant Pot. You can put it in an oven. That's how my mom made her. In her case, it was dairy yogurt. Is you turn the oven on at the lowest temperature, and then you turn it off. And then when the temperature comes down a bit, you put the yogurt in overnight. So, but Carolyn, did you want to talk about the yogurt you made? Did you use a store-bought
made it
yogurt?
myself. Yeah, this is the one I made myself a couple days ago, and I do it for about 15 hours. And it's made with either, I think it's it's West Soy. I have West Soy milk. And I just added a probiotic capsule, but I know, as Dilip said, you can add a few tablespoons. Is it a couple tablespoons of your previous batch and then make more?
Teaspoon's enough.
A teaspoon, really? Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is, I mean, you can see it's really thick when I turn it. It's not moving. but it's one I made myself in my Instant Pot, and I've been making it a lot lately. In fact, a friend sent me a recipe the other day for making it out of silken tofu, and she tried it the other day, and it came out thicker than this one does, and she loved it. So I'm going to try it out of tofu too. But actually, it calls for tofu and water, and she thought she might replace the water with more soy milk. So tofu and soy milk, and try it that way. Sounds very interesting. But I think, Dilip, you have a recipe for it somewhere on a Bitly document, don't you? So
Yeah, and I
could you
already
added that?
posted it, and I can post it
Yeah.
again. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's really very easy. And what I do is I use a probiotic capsule, but you could use, a teaspoon or whatever of your previous yogurt. There's vegan yogurt starters on Amazon, and you can order them a vegan yogurt starter, which is basically the contents of a probiotic capsule, to make sure it's a vegan probiotic capsule. But I just open it into the I guess is it a quart size of, it's about 4 cups worth of West soy, and just open it right in, put the cap back on and shake it up, and then pour it into glass jars. Loosely you don't want to put the lid on tight, just set it on top to keep condensation from, anything else getting into it, I guess. But you just loosely set the lid on top and then let it go on the yogurt setting. I do 15 hours, but
Oh, you like it even more sour than I do then.
I
So
do. I love it. And it's really good in the marinade to have it really sour like that. It's just
it's a good food to
delicious.
cook with, and it has all these
It is.
health benefits. So yogurt, all the cultures are very good for you. And now that we know how to make excellent vegan yogurt, you don't need to get the dairy yogurt. This is the
Exactly.
link: bit.ly vegan yogurt, bit.ly/VEGAN capital Y OGURT. And the way I make it's even easier. I don't do any mixing, and I did a bunch of experiments. Half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon is all you need, because I'm also a math teacher. So bacteria has exponential growth. It keeps doubling. And if you start with, it doubles very quickly. If you start with even a quarter or a half teaspoon, it's going to be a teaspoon very quickly. So you don't have to worry about putting much, and you don't have to mix. You can put the yogurt first and then the milk first and the yogurt. It makes no difference whatsoever. You put and then you let it culture. No mixing whatsoever required. I don't mix. I'm lazy. So I pour my milk in, and what I do nowadays is I use jam jars, and the top is curved, and sometimes it's hard to clean. So I put enough milk so it's well below that level, and then I just plop in a teaspoon of the last batch, and no mixing, and just say 13 hours and go to it. I've been really enjoying. So Cody, who's not here today, she and I gave a couple talks on the vegan cruise on holistic, the holistic health. What's it called? Holistic Holiday at Sea. And we stopped at an island in Honduras, and we found, when I buy things that are made from cacao bean chocolate, I always want to make sure, first of all, that it's vegan, but also that it's fair trade. And we found a wonderful chocolate place that was fair trade, sustainable, and all the profits went to support an animal sanctuary. And I only regret I didn't buy more products. The prices were really inexpensive. It was organic. And so I came back with all these. Just now I finished drinking some cacao tea. So it's some cacao and boiling water, a little bit of vegan creamer. But I've been enjoying many days a bowl of yogurt with some cacao on top and a little bit of maple syrup or something like that, and a few walnuts. So I had that earlier during the show. All right, there were a couple more questions. So can you mimic? This is Pat Murphy. So Pat Murphy, and Karen, you're getting all the names, right? Good. Can you sort of mimic TVP by using lentils? Yep. And that's the trick. So if you don't want to use TVP and you want that kind of crunch, then try something else. Lentils is a great choice. Maybe what you can do is you can take some onion and cook it down so it's nice and crispy. Don't use oil. And then chop up the onion, toss that, and you'll get a kind of a crunch. Maybe you can use panko breadcrumbs. So there's lots of choices for that crunch. So that was that question. All right, let's see. A lot of great questions coming in. So this is from Kathy Sabo. How do you organize your spices? I try to keep mine alphabetized, but it's a constant battle. My wife has helped with that recently. She organized a bunch of my spices. What I did is I took my cabinet. I went to a store called the Organization Store, and they have the spice rack that kind of screws into the inside of your cabinet, and that gave me space for 2 dozen or more spices. And then I keep ones I use less often in a drawer. And then I have this kind of pull out shelves, and I have space for quite a bit more spices in that too. I don't organize them alphabetically. I organize them by what I use the most. I use I use like 3 or 4 spices all the time. Garlic powder. I use dried oregano. I use this really nice citrus with a little bit of salt and some herbs. I use that quite a bit. I use cumin seeds a lot. I use turmeric a lot. And the other thing I do is for my Indian spices, I have them in a spice dippa. You can get them at an Indian grocery store for really cheap, surprisingly cheap. They're metal. I mean, like $8 for a small one and maybe $20 for a really big one. And they have all these little containers and little metal spoons. I like that, especially because spices like turmeric and curry can stain. And so that's what I do for my Indian spices. Would either of you like to share anything about how you organize your spices?
I have a on the back of my pantry door, the shelf, the little thin shelf, and all the jars are organized in alphabetical order. And if I put them back after I use them, they stay that way. But I have a lot of spices in little 1-cup mason jars on a shelf too, and I just kind of know where those are. The key is putting them back where I got them from as soon as I'm done using them.
And then, Carolyn, did you want to add anything to that about organizing spices?
I just have a really big Lazy Susan, like 2-level Lazy Susan, and I keep the things together that I use together. So if that makes any sense, like if I'm baking cookies or zucchini bread or something, I'm going to tend to use nutmeg, cinnamon, those kinds of spices. I keep those together kind of in alphabetical order. And then other spices that I use together. So I'll keep more savory spices together, more of the baking spices together, that kind of thing. So I know where they all are at one time.
I forgot to mention cinnamon. I use all the time. I use freshly ground black pepper quite a bit. I often use salt, so I keep that handy as well. Let's talk about salt in a second, but let's answer Jacqueline Fitzgerald's question. Please tell me where can I find ground flax seeds? So is it a good idea to grind the flax seeds and keep them, or do you want to grind them fresh? Do you want to freeze them? So Karen, you want to talk about ground flax seeds, where to find them and how to work with them?
You can find them like online or at Whole Foods, but if you buy those, you should keep them in the freezer because, like, as soon as they're ground, I like to grind them myself and then put them in whatever I'm using to keep them from oxidizing. The oils, the seeds, when you grind them, the oils are exposed to air and it will oxidize. So it's better to grind them yourself with like a coffee grinder or a spice grinder, just as soon as, like, when you're going to use them.
So Kathy, sorry for talking quickly. What's that called, Dilip? Did you say dippa, an Indian organizer? Dippa means box in Hindi. So if you go to any Indian grocery store or search on Amazon, don't worry about dippa, but say box. I'm looking for an Indian spice box, and it's pretty standard and really cheap. You can easily find it. So dippa is the traditional name, but it's a box. And then here was a question from Diane. Good to see you, Diane. Diane Garber. Let's add her to the list. When you make vegan yogurt in the Instant Pot, do you use water? Okay, it's a great question. And I've thought about, yep, that's the soy milk, right?
West soy, just soy milk.
Yeah. No, there's no need to use water. I've thought about that. Sometimes I put the jar on like the trivet. It doesn't seem to matter at all. Doesn't matter. I do close the lid. And lately, I was just thinking this like last night, I usually leave the vapor lock open. It doesn't really matter because it's such a low temperature. So whatever you want to do, I've tried all of the variables you've mentioned, and they work exactly the same. So be lazy. If you have the trivet in there, leave it in there. If you don't have the trivet, don't bother. If you already have a little bit of water, put the water in. If you don't put water. And I do close the lid to keep the heat in. And I usually have this vapor valve off, but it doesn't matter. It's very forgiving. Yeah, and thank you, Diane, for asking. Could you please let us know how your yogurt comes out? I'll tell you the thing about the vegan yogurt is start with a good yogurt that you like in the market, a good vegan yogurt, coconut milk, soy milk, whatever, and then make it. And I think you're going to find your yogurt is better. And as you make it, as I recall, I started making yogurt 4 years ago, something like that. It took a little while. It was kind of runny, but I think it was like a month or two, and it started becoming really nice. And now I still use that original mother yogurt, right? So if I travel, like I was gone, but my wife stayed home. So I asked her a couple days after we left to make a new batch. Every week, every 5 to 6 days, I make a new batch of yogurt. And if you're going to be traveling, just freeze your yogurt so you still have the mother batch. But it comes out better. Once I didn't use my original. Went back to some fresh yogurt like 2, 3 years into it, and it wasn't as good. So I said I'm going to go back to using the mother yogurt.
And you get a whole quart for the price of one of those little 6-ounce containers.
Exactly.
Right. Now, Janice has an excellent question. Can you use Japanese eggplants? Absolutely. I prefer Japanese eggplants because they're so thin and so they roast quicker, right? So I like them. And you know what I bought at the market yesterday or Thursday night at our co-op is they had on sale graffiti eggplant, which I don't know how it's related to Japanese eggplant. It's not as thin, but it's really pretty. And I have it just a few feet away from me. I should grab it and show it off. So any kind of eggplant, it doesn't really matter. There's also more kind of bulbous eggplants. So I generally pick eggplant for price. I always buy organic, and then I prefer the Japanese eggplant because it cooks faster.
And I was going to mention, Janice said earlier in the comments that she's from Montgomery. So hi, Janice. And I want to point out that in the summer, we have really, really good locally grown Japanese eggplant here that you can get at the East Chase Farmers Market from Leo's Produce. So go to Leo's Produce. As soon as they open, he'll tell you when he's going to have eggplant, but he grows it and brings it in every Saturday morning at East Chase, and it's delicious and beautiful. One of our first shows we ever did, I don't know if you remember, Dilip, but it was back, I think, in the summer of 2020. I did on the grill. I did a baba ganoush on the grill in a big pot lined with parchment paper, and I threw in the eggplant and onions and garlic and everything and put it just on the grill and let it roast on the grill to keep your kitchen from getting heated up. So that was an oil-free baba ganoush. Back, I think it was July of 2020 I did that. I can't remember. It's been quite a while ago that we did that one, but yeah, we make that all the time. And I use eggplant from Leo's Produce at our East Chase Farmers Market here in Montgomery, Janice. So I'll see you this summer, hopefully at Leo's Produce at the market.
And if you're in, and I apologize, luckily you didn't notice this, Carolyn, because you were cooking, but I always mix a Birmingham and Montgomery. Say, I have this good friend and she's in Birmingham. No, she's not.
I am in Montgomery. I am in Montgomery.
And I corrected myself. Nancy Scott, Karen, will you give us details of how you make the lentil pitas?
Sure. So I took about three quarters of a cup of water. I mean, 3/4 of a cup of quinoa, and soaked it in 1 cup of water overnight. And then I drain it and rinse it, put it in the blender with another 1/4 cup of fresh water. And really, that's all you need. But I did put a little bit of garlic granules in it because that's what I like. And then I blended it until it was smooth, and I lined a cookie sheet with parchment paper. I think it was about 400 degrees, maybe.
Fahrenheit.
Or 425, maybe. I don't know. And then I put like a 1/4 cup of the batter all over the cookie sheet, and just kind of took a flat a spatula and spread it into a circle. And then I baked it for about 20 minutes. And you can check it after 15 minutes. You might need 25 minutes. It depends on how thick or how thin you spread it. And just let it cool a little bit once you take it out. And then the paper, you can just take it off the paper really easily.
Question from Kathy Sabo. I've been cooking as the show was running, made some cucumber salad, which is a favorite of my father-in-law's. Question, how do you all squeeze out or drain liquid out of veggies when the recipe requires it? I'm going to punt on that because I've never seen a recipe or I've never tried to squeeze liquid out of my vegetables. Do either of you guys know? Have you ever done that? And any advice there? I guess the question might be if you're maybe making a sandwich and you don't want your bread to get soggy. But I personally would avoid that because you're going to lose some vitamins if you squeeze the water out, I would think. So,
Is it grated cucumber or no?
She wasn't talking specifically about cucumber. She was saying in general, How do you squeeze or drain liquid out of vegetables?
Well, I mean, like I did with the eggplant, but it was already cooked, and then I just let it sit on a paper towel lined plate. But if it's not cooked, you can salt the vegetables and then pour off. It'll make the water start coming out of the vegetables, and then you pour it all off.
You know what you could do too, if you squish the vegetables, the liquid you can use as a broth. I remember growing up, my aunt would always, when we used to often have like frozen mixed vegetables and we cook it. And then instead of discarding the water, she would keep it and she would drink it. And I know we were quite young and my brothers and I would say, yikes, that seems weird. But she said it's very healthy. And so she was aboard the healthy bandwagon before I was. Question from Bonnie Martin. We're going to take just a couple more questions and then do the drawing. So if you have any final questions, please post them. So Bonnie's asking, what other types of dishes do you use sumac in? I think I have some that I've never used. Play with it. So sumac, I love citrus, as I've mentioned, and so sumac gives me that citrus flavor. So it adds a little bit of tartness. So if you're making something and it's maybe, say you're making a dessert and it's maybe a little too sweet for you, you're using all these fruits, put some sumac. It gives it more kind of a mature feeling because it dampens down the sweetness. If you're making a main course and you want to add some hints of spice, add the sumac and it'll give you a little bit of sour kind of feel. So I would just play with it. It goes great with green beans. It goes really well with tofu. Karen has a suggestion, it sounds like.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if like a lot of sumac comes with salt in it, so if you're gonna make it with in a dessert, make sure it doesn't have the salt in it.
And Janice is suggesting cheesecloth, maybe for pressing the vegetables. Kathy asked a question. What other kinds of eggplants are there? I don't know if I call them specialty eggplants, but I love neon eggplant, which is this really bright colored eggplant. I love Japanese eggplant. Karen, I'm sure you know about quite a few different kinds of eggplants.
Yeah, there's Japanese and the Chinese. They're both you can have thin skin, and I think the graffiti eggplant also has thinner skin. There's Globe, the American.
Globe.
And I had the Italian. There's Indian, the little tiny.
There's white eggplant.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, there's the little green ones, little green round ones. I can't remember what they're called.
Karen, I sure wish you were local because can you imagine how much fun you and I would have in the grocery store?
That's all. I don't go there. That's the only place I shop. I don't go to other stores.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to shop with you. Janice, how do you make yogurt in the oven? The way my mom would do it. This is in the old days when there was a pilot light. Any of you who are old enough to remember what a pilot light is? So she would put it in an oven with the pilot light on, and that was all you need. Just a little bit of heat.
The newer ovens, though, if you have a newer oven, the light's not strong, not hot enough, so you can.
It's an LED light, probably.
You can walk by and just turn on the oven every once in a while for like a minute or less, but you need to set a timer, even if you think you're gonna remember it, because that minute goes by so fast and you get distracted, and then you come back and it's hot.
And Kathy makes the point about cucumber. If you're making a cucumber sandwich, you may want to put a paper towel to dab it so that the bread doesn't get, because my mom often would make cucumber sandwiches. All right, I think it's just about time for Q&A. I'm just seeing no more questions came in. We answered Bonnie's question. Karen, do you have the names of everybody?
Yeah, I have Lee Hay, Mary Cooper, Adrian Butler, Bonnie Martin, Millie Morales, Janice Dorn, Colleen Fleming, Pat Murphy, Kathy Sabo, Jacqueline Fitzgerald, Diane Garber, Janice Jackson, and Nancy Scott.
So I'll give you guys a moment to see if anybody asked a question that wasn't mentioned. Carolyn, I know you have some Easter cooking to do and you are in a rush to get someplace. Why don't we say bye to you, Carolyn, because now is going to be the mechanics of giving the prizes and we don't want to keep you. So thanks, Carolyn. Did you have any final comments, Carolyn, before? No?
Nope, just happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Ramadan.
Yes. Thanks, Carolyn. See you next
bye.
time. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So any final questions? Is that the list? Did we miss anybody? All right. So then let's do the drawing. So what number of people do we have, Karen?
13.
Okay, 13. Hang on a second. All right. So we have, wow, that's good. So I'm going to do a test draw. I'm going to use something called random.org. And random.org, you can put a number from 1, in this case 13, and it's going to generate. So this first one doesn't count. I'm going to run it just to see how it works. So I'm going to say random.org, please give me a number from 1 to 13, and it gives me 11. So if this were truly the first winner, then it would be the 11th person on the list. In this case, who's the 11th person on the list?
Diane Garber.
So Diane, you would have won, but of course this was just a test. So now what we'll do is we'll do two runs, at least 2 runs, because if we get the same number, you don't get to win twice. And Lee, don't forget, please do email. Let me check my email, see if you've emailed.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it.
Okay, so Lee, we haven't received your email. So Lee, please do send an email and let us know you won last month's, what's it called? The flaxseed. So let me go ahead and post our address. It's right here. I'll say send it to Karen at so many cooks.com and Dilip at so many cooks. It's really Karen, but if you want to copy me, that'd be fine. So please send it to us and then you will get your prize. So the first prize then is the what do you want to do first? The magazine subscription, maybe? Veg News?
Sure.
So Veg News is a very nice magazine. My friend Colleen Holland publishes it. It's out of San Francisco, I believe. That's where she is. And it has lots of interesting news about the vegan world. I think that if you've not seen it, you would enjoy it. So let's go ahead and draw for the 1-year subscription to Veg News. And the number I get is 6. So who's the 6th number? Who's the 6th name?
Janice Dorn.
Janice Dorn, can you confirm that you're here and that you will send us an email and then we will get you that subscription? So Janice, go ahead and just say hello or I'm here or something like that. And we'll know that you won. And of course, Karen is probably taking a note that you're the winner. So hopefully Janice will comment that she's here. Yep, wonderful. Congratulations, Janice. So please email us. Don't post your address here for obvious reasons, but please email Karen and me, and we'll be glad to get you the subscription. All right, so we'll draw again, and if the winner this time is again Janice won't win the second prize. We'll draw one more time. We'll keep drawing until we get a number other than hers. So the next prize, you want to tell us about the spices, Karen? Karen's the one who found this nice prize.
I forget what spices. There's a couple of different and 3 different blends, and one of them is the za'atar spice with sesame seeds. I forget what the other 2 are. Sorry.
I forgot to. But it's 3 spices, and Karen is even more careful, I think, than I am about organic, and so she tries to always get organic gifts. And I think when you recommended this, you said that 2 of the 3 were organic, one wasn't.
One is non-GMO.
Okay, one is non-GMO but not labeled as organic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's draw for the spices. So I'm going to draw from 1 to 13, and the winner is 12. Who's number 12?
Janice Jackson.
Another Janice. It's a lucky day for Janices. Janice Jackson for winning the spices. So okay. Oh, and what a nice comment, Millie. We love hearing comments like this. Love this group, and your mission was the first group that helped convince me I could adapt to vegan lifestyle almost a year ago. We're delighted that you're here, and we are happy if we can provide a little bit of support. We're happy to do that. Please keep watching and let us know how your journey is going with plant-based eating. If there's a local Food for Life instructor, I encourage you to check it out, fflclasses.org. We also have remote classes. All right. So we know which Janice won which one, right?
Yep.
So Janice Zintek Dorn won the magazine, and you, Janice Jackson, won the spices. So would each of you please email Karen at so manycooks.com, and you might as well copy me, Dilip at so manycooks.com, and hopefully both those emails should be coming through. I don't see them at the moment, but hopefully both of you will email pretty soon. All right. So thank you, Millie, and thank you, Adrian, as well. What's our next show? So in 2 weeks, the kids, including my daughter, the kids in the kitchen, are doing brunch foods. My daughter's been perfecting a French toast, and I'm one of the lucky recipients of her labors. And I believe that she and Ava, who's the daughter of Cody, one of her cooks in the kitchen, are going to be doing theirs together. So we'll have a split screen. We've never done that. And if it works well, maybe some of us cooks can do that. So that's a brunch show. Um, and because of schedules, that one may not have any Q&A. And then we're back next month. And Karen, do you want to talk about our next show? Do you remember what we're doing next?
Aren't we doing the brunch show too?
We're also doing the brunch show. So maybe ours will be a little bit different. Maybe we'll learn from the kids, right? I'm thinking of making, let's see, I had an idea of what I was going to make. I've already made scrambled tofu. Oh, I'm thinking of making a really simple recipe for fruited oatmeal. And oftentimes I find that my recipes are maybe the simplest of all. um, but I think there's a space for simple recipes so that people can easily get into the kitchen. And I make this fruited oatmeal many mornings. It's easy, and I think I'll probably make that so it gives me an opportunity to talk about how to make some shortcuts for making oatmeal and what kinds of fruits go well. So that's what I'm thinking right now is fruited oatmeal. Do you know what you're going to be making, Karen?
I don't, but that's the thing I like to do is make things simple for people, because if it's not simple, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Most people. I mean, sometimes I
Right.
do complicated things for special occasions, but most of the time, just simple.
Right. I hope you guys find that our recipes in general are pretty straightforward, pretty easy. One of the things for so many cooks in the kitchen is we want to make sure that they're vegan, whole food, plant-based as much as possible, limited fat, and easy to make. And that's true for the Physicians Committee Food for Life classes as well. The difference is the Food for Life classes also, they have what we do, but even more, they're professionally developed by professional chefs. And I think all of us, we're trying to create things that are visually appealing and that you can substitute ingredients and things like that. So take advantage of many Physicians Committee resources, including the classes, but also there's a 21-day Kickstart, and Physicians Committee offers many programs. So check out pcrm.org. We're all PCRM Food for Life instructors. All right. So, and I wanted to kind of end the show on a reminder that this was Janin's suggestion. She's originally from Turkey. And there was a lot of news about the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. And she said at the time we should do a show on Middle Eastern cooking, but she said let's not do it right away because the news will die down. And of course it has. And there's a lot of people still suffering there, and other places for other reasons. And so we wanted to try to bring our memories back to what's going on there and remind you. And I think I mentioned that I teach a lot of my classes at a Turkish cultural center, sancar.org, sancar.org. And so I know they have links to the organization that Janin had mentioned that is on the ground and is providing relief. So we love the food. I certainly love Middle Eastern food. My heart was broken to hear how much damage they sustained, and I know that the rebuilding is going to be ongoing. So there's lots of good reasons lots of good charities, and so I'm not trying to say, I encourage you to look into this. I mean, there's many other things to support as well, but I did want to keep the memory of the earthquakes alive. Janice, you want to know our emails, so the emails are Karen@somanycooks.com, and you can copy Dilip at somanycooks. Those are the two emails, Janice. Okay, and Lee as well. Please do send. Please do send. Let's see. Okay, good. I got the note from Lee. Excellent. So I will make sure, Karen, that you have it. Yep, and you should have received that too. So we do have Lee's email. We're waiting for both Janice's. Thank you, Lee. We got it. Okay. So thanks everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. If you're celebrating Passover or Ramadan or Easter or anything else, happy holidays. Those three holidays are super important holidays. So I know um, that these are very important. And if you still spend time with us this weekend, we really thank you for taking time out of your schedule. So Karen, did you have any final things to say?
Happy holidays and have fun with your food.
See you guys next time. Keep your ideas coming. Keep adding comments. And if you think of new ideas you want, we haven't figured out what we're doing in June or July. So if you have ideas, email any of us, first name @somanycooks.com, and say, would you do a show on such and such? We have a long list of items, but we'd love to hear more ideas. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys in a couple weeks in the kids show, and then our adult show in. Do you remember what the date is, Karen? It's in May. It's the first week of May, I think.
I think it's the 6th.
Okay, May 6th. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.